coaches use social media. It seems like you guys are pretty active on it. I guess what's your whole attack with social media, and what are you trying to get accomplished with that?
Well, I think we're on it, and then players are on it. Number one, that's just a new way of communicating, and we're obviously figuring out as it evolves, we evolve with it. Different ways that we can use it to communicate, promote our program, and that's just the way things are now. So I think we've kind of dove into that at Arkansas State, and we've done it more at Boise State, and you see that continue through all the other programs. So it continues to be a good way to get our message across.
Is it a recruiting tool more than anything else?
Yeah, because you're promoting your program, and promoting your program is about recruiting. Whether it's an actual student athlete or it's your fan base, whatever it is, you're talking about your program through social media. And so people that are on it, that utilize it, and that's most people nowadays, that's where it's at.
A couple coaches have said it's a necessary evil. I don't like using Twitter, but I have to. I mean, do you enjoy the experience of social media, or is it something you do because it benefits your program?
Good and bad. Yeah, I mean, it's beneficial for what we need, but there's a lot of information on there that is unnecessary, inaccurate, and stuff sometimes that you have to answer questions about that really had nothing to do with your program or what you did. But you have to also figure out, what was said and explain that sometimes. So it becomes a little bit of evil of just time. And I think there's a fine line of how you do it and how much you do use it. And then the guys that utilize it with you, because if it becomes a problem, then you need to eliminate that.
The quarterback position in this conference, a lot of teams are in the same situation. You guys are, figuring out that position as well. I guess, what are your thoughts just generally on the quarterback position in the Mountain West this year?
Figure it out. Everybody's trying to do that, and, see what happens. I mean, everybody's in the same boat. Got Chucky Keaton back and some other guys, but for the most part, you're going to have new faces out there. And, are these new faces going to be guys that are going to be there for the next 2 or 3 years too? That might be another storyline at the end of this year, that now you've got an established group of quarterbacks that may be young guys in the Mountain West that are going to be potential starters for the next 2 or 3 years. Who knows? So it just remains to be seen.
What have you seen at your quarterback position? I mean, we've talked a lot about Ryan, but obviously there's 3 other guys there. What have you? I know you can't see a lot over the summer, but what have you seen? I guess how do you kind of shape that up as you head into fall camp?
They're better. They're all better from fall camp, from spring practice. We talked about that, going from spring, the time you develop through the summer, especially at that position, to when you get to fall camp. They look better. You see them run around. You see them out there moving. So, physically as athletes, they've improved. They've had a lot of reps through the summer that we can't be out there at, but they've had a chance to play the position for a while throughout the summer. And, the first couple of days of fall camp, I'll have a pretty good idea of how summer went. How Brett Rippon developed, how Tommy Stewart took his game to another level. Where is Alex Ogle, with understanding the offense? And, in the first couple of days, we'll probably know where they're at.
When do you, I know we've asked you before, but when do you kind of need to start cutting it down? Or is that a concern?
It's usually about 10 days before you play is when you'd like to have a decision. All right, so you can get some game prep in there and a couple extra days, but it's really when it's time. And hopefully it's a tough battle that you got to really get down to that second scrimmage, practices afterwards to see, okay, what's the 1 or 2 things we're trying to figure out to separate these guys. And if you got that, and it's a good thing when you have some pretty healthy competition, you got your starter who you pick, and you got another guy that's right there waiting. And that's what you want, because you don't know how the season's going to go, especially early on. This is practice. These are scrimmages. As you get into the game, you got somebody new out there, and how are they going to respond? So you're waiting to see what happens there.
Were there any guys that stood out? Did anybody stand out to you over the summer, notable, that you saw something
At
from?
quarterback?
Yeah.
No, and not in a bad way. It's just no one's going to stand out until, you know, I'm actually out there with them, coaching them, and on the field and watching them operate the offense. So they haven't done anything bad. They got to be with us for that to happen.
Bryan, what is the only team in the league that's going through trying to find your quarterback, and considering what the quarterback situation's been like in the conference years past? How different is it? How interesting does it make the conference race?
Don't know, because I don't know who the quarterbacks are yet, you know, and everybody's trying to figure that out. I think it makes it interesting for all the coaches into fall camp that they're all kind of doing the same thing we're doing, trying to figure out who's going to be the guy back there pulling the trigger. Once we get into it and we start to see, all right, who's the quarterback here, who's the quarterback here, oh, who's that guy, you know, then there's going to be obviously some like, oh, that guy's pretty good, or you knew about that guy maybe recruiting and you're kind of watching them develop until you play him.
What kind of pecking order do you have going into fall camp at quarterback?
Like we had in spring, so Finley, Stewart, Rippon, Ogle. You know, and Rippon, Ogle are going to be in that, you know, oars right back in there, and then it'll change. I mean, that's how we'll start at Chadd, and then practice 2 it might be Stewart, Finley, Rippon, Ogle, and then it's going to be Rip. So we're going to go through in a practice. We have 3 team periods. To start off, Finley's going to start it, and the next time we start his team period, it might be Stewart. The next time it might be Rippon or Ogle at that point. And then those first impressions early on, that kind of tells you, all right, who's operating, who's kind of worked the offense this summer, who's done a good job, who feels comfortable being out there, and then, you know, there's going to be more reps going to that guy that runs it better.
How much of a gap was there between Ryan and the other guys? I mean, obviously he, you know, pretty showed in the spring game he was kind of more advanced than the rest. But how big was that gap?
It was a big gap in spring. You know, Ryan's played. Ryan has the most experience. Ryan understands what we're doing better, you know, than the other guys, because he's kind of been in that role of. And at one point, you know, everybody thought he was going to be the guy. That we're going to just roll out with Finley and, you know, take it from there. So he's prepared that way mentally, but that's what I'm saying. So spring, you know, when that's done, those other guys, including Ryan, they've watched so much tape and they've gone back, they've run the practices and done so many reps individually that I think that gap is closed. I hope that gap's closed. It should have closed. If it hasn't, you know, then there's going to be a big separation, or we just haven't done a good enough job, you know, with the younger guys of catching up. Because as you get into fall camp with all that time, that gap needs to be closer. Now it comes down to, you know, who's out there competing, who's making the throws, who's got confidence. It shouldn't be about, you know, he just has more knowledge, because that should all have happened this summer.
Now that, you know, the courts have kind of cleared it up or decided not to do anything with it, can you tell us what happened with Rick Smith and you know, sort of, you know, I guess a little bit medically what happened to him?
No, other than what you know. I mean, that's a team. That's one of our team issues, and we don't talk about those things, and we've dealt with that as a team. I can say this: we're happy that Rick's back. We like to have him back. We're happy that he's competing. He's out there working out. We'll get him back in fall camp, and we expect him to play this year. And so that's where we're at right now, and you know, he's doing a good job.
Is there any penalty? Is there any punishment or suspension or penalty for the other player involved in the team?
No.
To have something like that happen in your locker room, and now you've got those 2 guys back together, what do you have to deal with your team, or what kind of conversations do you guys have to have as a team after something like that?
Real life conversations. You know, we're a football team, and we're a family, and these conversations have already been had. I'll just say that before there's ever a situation in our program. We're a family, and things aren't always perfect, and guys make mistakes and issues come up, and we deal with that, and that's our job. We're educators. All right, we figure out what the problem is. We sit down, we have the conversation. We make sure that people have learned from whatever mistake it might be, and then we move on, and we back our players from that standpoint. And I feel like, you know, it's not easy, and I know my job isn't easy and to make those type of decisions, but I'm glad that I'm the one making it, because I feel like that's the right thing for our guys. And these guys on our football team, they're not perfect, and neither were any of us when we were that age, and we're not now either. So I don't even want to go down that road and pretend that way, but I want to make sure that we have a process in place that when things come up, these guys learn from it. They're better people because of it, and then we decide what we need to do from there. And that's my decision, and that's how we do it.
There was a report out of California, out of his hometown paper or whatever, that he was going to be out for 10 or 11 months. He was going to need speech therapy, all of these things. How badly hurt was he, and was there debate whether he would even be able to play football for you guys? Or
I would just say that was inaccurate.
okay.
We'll just leave it at that. That was an inaccurate statement. He's with us now. He's doing fine, and you know what? We're expecting to have him. He will be in fall camp, and we're expecting to have him play this year, and so is he. You know, I can say this about Rick. Rick loves football. He loves Boise State, and he wants to be out there on that field contributing. He transferred from Arizona State for a reason, to go play for us, and that's what he wants to do and what he loves to do. And so, you know, hopefully that's what happens early.
Obviously, he was very good last fall for you guys. He was Scout Team Player of the Year, but then you haven't had him since then. So,
Yeah.
What do you expect him to be able to contribute for you this year?
I'll expect him to contribute. You know, now I don't know what that is yet, and still for, you know, all these new guys, he's still a new guy. But as far as, you know, what I've seen from him this summer, he's done exactly what we've asked him to do. So he's fallen in line with the other players and things that we're expecting our guys to get done through the summer. And then he gets into fall camp. He knows how to play football. He understands what we're doing. He knows the expectations. So get out there and do what you do. Go make plays. Go have fun. Go enjoy it. Remember why you came here, and he hasn't forgotten that. And go out there and compete. And then what he does in the game, I don't know. He's still a new player, regardless of if we've lost some time with him. It's still going to be, you know, Rick Smith is out there, and everyone's going to be going, all right, what do you do? And watch him play.
With Finley and you know, saying you're likely not going to suspend him, you've had some other discipline issues in the past with Matt Bosin and recruit that you had that you weren't going to bring. I mean, how do you kind of weigh those things and make these individual decisions on that? Because there's some folks that say that, well, Finley did this, but this guy did this, and they're trying to compare the seriousness of the crimes and all that, the charges and all that. How do you as a coach try to, you know, sort through all that?
Yeah, they're all different. Every situation is different, and you know, the way that we do it and how our players understand it, they'll be treated fair and not equal. And it's just how it is, you know, because every situation is different, and that's been a policy in place there for some time, and I believe it. And that's my job with our coaches, with families, and the players. What's the bottom line? You know, does somebody learn from their mistake? Is there a remorse for it? Is there education that goes into it? Absolutely. And to me, that's the main point of what we're trying to accomplish. And I feel like we do that. And so as I get the facts and information that I have my conversations and we sit down, that's how we make it. And like I said before, those decisions aren't easy, but they are decisions that have to be made. And, you know, when we do it, you know what, we're going to stand behind our guys. And I feel like we've done exactly what we tell them we're going to do when we sit in their homes, is we're going to take care of these guys. We're going to help them along the way. We don't expect them to be perfect. But when something does come up, the only people that are going to be there for them is going to be us. And that's me, and we're there for them, and we make sure that if it's something that we feel really strongly about, or there's a major issue, we deal with things differently.